Hello and welcome to the third episode of our podcast about the New Thought movement. In the previous episodes, we talked about the origin of the movement and the role of spirituality and philosophy in its development, and some names mentioned. So today we will find out who these people were and why their contributions stand out. As usual, I have Billy here to support me, but before I ask him the first question, let me remind you that if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can get a free copy of my ebook, The Law of Allowing, which can be downloaded as PDF and MP3 as well if you prefer audio. The link is in the description of this episode. Okay, time to ask Billy the first question. So, the first person we want to mention here is Phineas Quimby. What can you tell me about him?
Phineas Quimby played a pivotal role in shaping the New Thought movement and is commonly known as the father of New Thought. Now I will explain why. Quimby, a native of Belfast, Maine, was a self-taught philosopher and healer who believed in mental methods of treating physical ailments. His healing methods were drug-free and surgical-free, and they eventually became identified as the philosophy of the New Thought movement. As he gave more lectures and became increasingly well-known, he gained a following of notable figures, such as Emerson and Bushnell. His teachings also influenced others in the New Thought movement, like Hopkins, who eventually founded the Christian Science Church. Quimby's belief in the tremendous influence of the mind over the physical world shaped the outlook of countless intellectuals. His teachings remain a source of inspiration to many today, as he envisioned a world where people could live harmonious and fulfilling lives. Even after all these years, Quimby's ideas still speak to people from all walks of life, reminding them of the power of the mind in creating a better future.
You just mentioned Emma Curtis Hopkins. Who was she and what role did she play?
Emma Curtis Hopkins was an American spiritual teacher and writer, and also a student of Quimby, as we just found out. Her contribution to the New Thought movement includes many influential works. For example, she wrote a series of books titled Science of Mind, which discuss several spiritual philosophies and how to apply them to everyday life, and also essays regarding religious and spiritual topics. Let's not forget the book The High Mysticism, which is still a popular read today. Hopkins founded the Christian Science Seminary, a metaphysical school dedicated to educating students in metaphysical teachings. Many of her students went on to become prominent teachers and leaders in the New Thought movement. She is often referred to as the teacher of the teachers, as she taught her students to think independently and to make an effort to discover their own personal truth. But Hopkins' contribution to the movement extends beyond her writings and teachings, since she was largely responsible for the spread of its philosophies and for inspiring others to become involved in it. She is credited with influencing many prominent figures, including Ernest Holmes and Thomas Troward.
Hey, can you read my mind? I was just about to ask you on Thomas Troward.
Well, it's always a pleasure to anticipate your questions. Anyway, Thomas Troward was an influential British philosopher who became best known for his books on spiritual and philosophical issues, particularly his teachings on the power of thought. His book The Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science was a key text of the New Thought movement. Troward believed that the power of thought had the ability to shape the universe and that it was the source of the law of attraction. He was an advocate of mental healing and was among the first to link spiritual and psychological healing. Troward also believed that by tapping into the subconscious mind, individuals could discover a spiritual power within themselves. He argued that faith and trust in this spiritual power was the key to achieving enlightenment. He further stated that positive thinking and creative visualization could be used to channel this spiritual power. Troward's teachings on the power of thought and the law of attraction influenced the teachings of Ernest Holmes, William Walker Atkinson, and Ralph Waldo Trine. His books, such as the above-mentioned The Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science, have become classic New Thought texts and continue to inspire many today.
Once again, you just mentioned the name of someone I wanted to ask you about, Ernest Holmes. What can you tell me about him?
Ernest Holmes was an American spiritual teacher and founder of the religious science movement. He is best known for his book The Science of Mind, which outlines the core principles and practices of the movement. Holmes spent much of his early life studying various spiritual traditions, including Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism. He was particularly influenced by the teachings of Thomas Troward, and he incorporated many of Troward's ideas into his own work. The Church of Religious Science is based on the principle that individuals can improve their lives and achieve their goals by using spiritual laws and principles. Today, this movement has a global presence, with centers and practitioners in many countries. Its teachings have influenced many other New Thought and self-help movements, and its emphasis on the power of the mind and the spiritual nature of reality has made it a popular resource for personal growth and spiritual development.
Great. Next is Mary Baker Eddy. Who was she exactly, and what role did she play in shaping the New Thought movement?
Mary Baker Eddy is an iconic figure within the New Thought movement, having made substantial contributions to its nature and ideology. Born in New Hampshire in 1821, Mary claimed to have been cured of her illness after relying on her own spiritual sense and the Bible. This experience is thought to have been the foundation of her own system of spiritual healing and lead to her writing the book Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures in 1875. Eddy founded the Church of Christ, Scientist in 1879. Her teachings focused on the power of spiritual healing, divorce from materialism and sin, as well as the role of science and religion in life. She also believed in the capacity of individuals to access the spiritual. According to her teachings, we all have the power to heal ourselves and to understand the power of the Spirit in life. By exploring the concept of spiritual healing and its potential effect on the world, Mary Baker Eddy's teachings continue to inspire and motivate the hundreds of thousands who follow the New Thought movement and the Church of Christ, Scientist today.
Last but not least, Neville Goddard. What can you tell me about him?
Neville Goddard was born in Barbados and spent much of his life in the United States. His teachings focused on the power of the human imagination to create reality. He believed that individuals could manifest their desires by using their imagination to visualize the outcomes they wanted to achieve. He taught that our thoughts and beliefs shape our experiences, and that by changing our beliefs, we can change our reality. Goddard's teachings were heavily influenced by the Bible, and he often interpreted its stories and teachings in a metaphysical and symbolic way. He believed that the Bible was a guide to spiritual transformation and that its stories were not meant to be taken literally, but rather as symbolic representations of spiritual truths. Goddard's teachings have had a significant influence on the New Thought movement and the self-help industry. Many contemporary spiritual teachers and authors, including Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, have acknowledged Goddard's influence on their work.
You know, all these, let's say, alternative churches that were created and that you just mentioned make me wonder, was there ever any clash with the so-called traditional churches and religions, like Christianity, for example?
These alternative churches did not necessarily cause a direct clash with traditional religions like Christianity, but they did challenge some of the fundamental beliefs and practices of those religions. For example, New Thought teachings often rejected the idea of original sin and instead emphasized the innate goodness of human beings. They also emphasized the power of individual spiritual experience over the authority of religious institutions and texts. This led some traditional religious leaders to criticize the New Thought movement as unorthodox and even heretical. However, others saw potential similarities between the two and sought to find common ground. Some Christian churches even incorporated New Thought teachings into their own practices and beliefs.
Wow. Now you made me really curious because your answer actually calls for more questions. So I think in the near future we should devote an episode to the relationship between the New Thought movement and Christianity. What do you think, Billy?
Whenever you want.
Great. Okay guys, that's it for today. Billy and I hope that we have sparked your curiosity and inspired you to look for more information about these spiritual teachers. Don't forget your free copy of my ebook, The Law of Allowing. The link with the easy instructions on how to get it is in the description. New episode of this podcast next week, and yeah, I guess that's really it for today. Ciao!